going and facing my team of 50-ish people, telling them something I didn't believe in was making me physically sick. And it was just time to go. I had started building my business on the side, a coaching business, for 4 years, and had never intended to make that my full-time job. I had always intended that it was going to be fun. It was something I loved doing, coaching women, sometimes college students, occasionally a man that's like, hey, I really need help with this thing. It was the thing that I did so that it wasn't all about politics and other people's way of doing things. And I thought, I'm just going to build it. And I realized one day, I woke up, I was like, I built a business. Why am I putting up with this crap? Like, what am I doing? And I told my husband, I said, I'm going to give notice in March of 2020 after my stock options vest and I get my bonus. I know you're laughing because we all know what happened in March of 2020. I was like, really?
Yeah. What happens when you've been doing the work above your title for years, and the thing that finally cracks you open is the realization that you've already built your way out? Tabatha Jones answers that question, and she does it in a way that might make you look at what you've been explaining away for a lot longer than you realized. This is the Your Next Success podcast, and I am your host, Dr. Carolyn Sengel. I am a life-first career coach and strategist on a mission to normalize questioning your career, because I believe each of us is made on purpose for a purpose only we can fulfill. The longer we live out of alignment with who we are, what we do best, and why we are here, the more we miss out, and the more the world misses out on what only we can give. The Your Next Success podcast is where we explore how to build a career that truly fuels your life. We talk about self-discovery, smart job search strategies, professional growth, and you will hear stories from people who have navigated big career transitions themselves, so you can create a life-first career and become your own version of authentic success, one that is aligned, meaningful, and truly yours. This conversation is about what it actually looks like to build before you leave, and what your body has been trying to tell you that you've been explaining away as something else entirely. Tabatha Jones invested more than 20 years inside corporate America, rising to executive director at Comcast through 4 mergers and more reorgs than she can count. She learned self-advocacy the hard way, a decade into doing director-level work before she ever asked for the title to match. When she finally did ask, she got a 19% raise and brought along every woman around her with her. She also built her exit in the margins of all of it, 1 hour a day for 4 years before she ever gave notice. Well, now today she is the corporate escape Sherpa, and I am really glad she's here. Let's listen in to our conversation. Tabatha Jones, welcome to Your Next Success. I'm super excited for our conversation.
Me too, Carolyn. Thank you for having me here.
We're going to get to all of the amazing work that you do today. You're known as the corporate escape Sherpa. You work with so many people, middle-aged women, and sometimes college students to kind of help them sort out what it is that they'd love to do or whether they're going to build a business. You have lots of tools and things for that. So we will get to all of that. And I'd love to kind of dial it way back to the beginning of your story. Can you help us understand, where were you born? What was life like for the very youngest Tabatha?
Well, I was born in Port Hueneme, California, in the Naval Base Hospital. My dad was in the Navy, and that's kind of where I started. I don't remember a ton about early childhood. I would say my one memory when I think back, it's probably when I was about 2.5, 3 years old and making mud pies in the backyard with my great-grandmother. They were immigrants from Denmark on that side of the family. Her thing was just this big, beautiful swing set that she had sewn these gorgeous pillow covers for me and put on there. So they were super fluffy. So we would build mud pies and then sprinkle off in the sprinklers and then hop in the swing. And she would just talk to me while we swing back and forth. I would say those times were a little easier. Then, kind of fast forwarding a little bit, my parents divorced and my dad kind of moved on into his own life. And I didn't see him for the next 30 years of my life, which was kind of interesting. But in the meantime, my mom remarried. Her second husband legally adopted me. And we moved out to the East Bay area out here in California, outside of San Francisco. And I was about 7 at that time. And we moved to a town called Livermore, and everyone thought it was the edge of the world. Like, nobody lived there. It's a farming community. There's nothing there. But it was also the beginning of a huge construction boom and growth. So I grew up mostly in Livermore from 7 to 18.
Oh, wow.
So most of my memories are there.
Did you end up having siblings as well?
I did. So my mom and her second husband had a brother and sister for me, actually, sister and brother, if we go in the right order. So I have my middle siblings. They actually divorced when I was about 12. She remarried and had my baby sister, who is my favorite human on earth. So, yes, such a good, interesting family story, I guess.
In that, you learned you could make some significant changes and still end up having a happy chapter. And maybe it wasn't the forever chapter, but it's still, I think it speaks a lot to resilience, to change, to kind of starting over, building new, and being open to new relationships and love however it comes.
Yeah.
Could be a both and world, right? So
Absolutely.
now, do you recall, were there any particular activities inside or outside of school that you enjoyed more than others?
Oof. I was probably a little bit of a nerd. I didn't have a real solid friend group. I hung out with all different people all through school. I tend to get along with almost anybody. I love people. I love learning from people. Anyone who is a different religion or different ethnicity, I just want to know more. I'm like a sponge when it comes to those types of things. And I would say class-wise, I always loved anything that had to do with reading or history, English. Math and science were never my jam. There's parts of science that I love. I love money, but math and numbers are not really my thing. So those weren't my high points. And then I would say outside of school, I wasn't really the sports kid. I tended to do more reading. For an extrovert, I was pretty introverted when I was younger. I liked hanging out and socializing, but I also really cherished my downtime and reading anything I could get my hands on. I might have been called mouthy by my mom, so I spent a lot of time being on restriction or grounded, I think the kids call it now.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Middle school and high school kind of came along. I started strategically planning what would be really cool to have in a dorm room. So it's like one year I asked for a tiny TV, and another year I asked for a stereo. And of course, I asked for a nice alarm clock. And then as I got mouthier, those things would like slowly get pulled out. Like the regular restriction wasn't enough. It was then now we're taking this and now we're taking that. And one day I said, well, you might as well just take the light bulb too. And they did.
That is awesome.
So,
yeah.
Right there with you, girl,
Oh.
across the several states away. Yeah. So you probably never
same
lost
thing.
your light bulb, but it was all my doing because I'd be like, oh, yeah? Well, how about da 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 da? Well, while you're
Oh
at
my
it.
gosh. That is funny. Well, I have the gift of sarcasm, so whatever I said was generally very sarcastic. And so what I would do, because I love to read, is I'd be like, all right, send me to my room. And I'd sit down. I read an entire set of encyclopedias, not once, but twice. That's how much time I spent in my room. I read the dictionary. Even to this day, my friends are like, how do you know that? I'm like, girl, have you ever read the encyclopedia? It's right in there. You don't even need the Google. And so one time, my mom got super smart and she grounded me with no books. And I was like, oh, shoot. Now what do I do?
So then what'd you do? Right?
I did a lot of house cleaning and yard work and weed pulling and dog grooming.
Gosh.
Yes.
That's funny.
And super funny because it takes me back even just thinking about in class. I always had a book because I was the one that finished my work quickly, unless it was math or science. I was always the one that was too talkative. So I had a teacher, oh my gosh, Mr. Kapoor. I loved him. But it was history in maybe 11th grade. He would literally move everybody away from me. He would slide desks away from me. So I was all by myself. And then he'd just send me on an assignment. He's like, go to the office, go handle this. Okay.
Right? I had that, like the poster board for like science fair, like the 3 kind of pronged cardboard thing.
Yes.
I had some teachers that would just like put one on my desk, and I'm like, what? Like, now I didn't know at that time. It took me several decades and a couple of children later to realize when one time somebody said, did anybody ever tell you you're neurodivergent? And I'm like, no, but that sure would make a whole hell of a lot of sense. I'm pretty sure. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Oh,
Oh,
gosh.
so
Now that all these things are coming out, I've thought myself, I'm like, maybe I need to go get checked because I do feel like in some ways, I'm like, yeah, I'm kind of aligned with a lot of what I've been reading. Wasn't in the encyclopedias back then, or I would have self-diagnosed.
of course they weren't. And if it was only boys, and they would get some like Ritalin or something, and then that was it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. Okay, funny. I knew we were aligned in some ways. I didn't know that we also shared restriction and being slightly isolated in a classroom to not be bothering other people or
all the way back. All the way back. I did not enjoy a lot of physical activity. I was not into PE, though I did take badminton my senior year because I needed one more class.
Yeah.
But I had a teacher in PE and I hated to run. So anytime we had to run, I'd be like, oh, I can't. I got cramps. I just got cramps. They're so bad. The flow. And as soon as you say the flow, men just kind of shut down back then. So I spent most of the time being a TA in PE. And then years later, I find out he was friends with my stepfather. And so my mom's like, oh, yeah, we had this great conversation with Mr. Minkler. And I'm like, how do you know Mr. Minkler? And he's like, well, apparently you had a really bad period problem in high school. I'm like, really? Did I know?
I was
Oh, yeah.
actually problem solving. Some of that may have been partially true. Other times may have just been, I feel like whatever thing he was trying to do.
Well, why are we running? There's no need to run. Nobody's chasing me.
I have said that the exact phrase.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so now as it kind of comes towards the end of high school, like how did you decide what you wanted to do next?
So end of high school. So I was out at 18, disagreement at home. And so I was out on my own and I had to have a job, of course, which I had gotten a job at AT&T long distance, my first job out of high school. First job that was not babysitting. And it was actually kind of fun working in the call center, having a big girl job, supporting myself. So I did not go to college right away. I took a class here and a class there and just started building my career. So I started moving up a little bit at AT&T. And then, oh my gosh, I got married at 20. I went through a layoff at 20. 20 was kind of a pivotal year. And then I landed at a small company called Faraday, which did credit card embossing and encoding. And to make extra money, I worked 2 jobs there. So I had a job as an account manager. And then at night, I would go work in the embossing and encoding area, embossing and encoding credit cards.
How interesting. Now,
I know. The owner of the company's like, I don't think we can legally do this. I was like, you can. I won't tell anybody.
I want to ask a little bit about the layoff at 20. Did you even know layoffs were a thing? I don't know that I knew layoffs were a thing. And then how was that communicated? What did you do? Did they give any sort of severance like at 20? How'd that go down? Yeah.
It wasn't much severance. So there's that. I knew that companies were reorging. I just didn't realize it could happen to anybody like me. And I actually had kind of a cushy job at the time. I had moved into a department that dealt with T1 line emergencies. So basically, if somebody was digging something with a backhoe and they cut through one of the big, giant cable lines and it took everybody down, I was the emergency response person that was dealing with the calls and letting them know ETAs and checking all that stuff. Well, unless someone was digging up a line with a backhoe, there really wasn't anything to do. So my friend Dawn and I would sit there and we would do crafts at our desk. Like we had our hot glue guns.
Awesome.
You know, hindsight, I think back, I'm like, well, in hindsight, they probably didn't need us for a really long time. But what happened with that layoff is we were given an option of you can take a relocation package. So you can relocate to St. Louis, Missouri, or I think Atlanta, Georgia was the other option. And I'm in California. I've always been in California. Or you can take a package, and the severance package was maybe 3 or 4 weeks' pay. It wasn't much. And I was like, well, I guess I'll go try St. Louis and see. So the deal was you can go for 2 weeks, get the feel of it, see what you think, and then come back and make your decision. I went, and God love the people in St. Louis. They're very nice people. I am not made for cold weather. And it was cold and snowy. And the security guard's like, you don't have a car? You're going to walk from here? I said, well, they didn't give me a car. I guess I can't rent a car. I got to walk. He said, well, I'm going to watch you walk to the corner. Then I'm going to radio the next security guard to watch for you
Aw.
out that door. And then I need you to get there and run to your hotel. I'm like, where am I? What is happening? So needless to say, that did not work out. There were a lot of other things that just culturally weren't aligned for me there. And so I came back. When I came back, I was told, oh, well, you didn't accept it, so you don't have a job and there's no severance. And I was like, wait, what? So the person who was in charge of the reorg in our department did not lay out the fine print piece. I had never signed anything. There was no clear discussion. But because I did not accept a job that was offered, I basically was self-terminating.
Oh, wow.
It was wild. You know, it's funny. I haven't thought about it in years, but when I think back to it, I was like, I probably could have fought that had I known or had the experience to do it. But anyway, so that just led to the next thing. Where I worked for that smaller company and got to know the ins and outs of working for a small company. It was interesting. So on top of credit cards, we also did ATM cards, and then we would mail the pins 3 days later. Like, it was a whole process.
Back at does that still happen? I don't even know how it happens.
I don't know. And so it was so wild. And so this happened. Well, somebody was getting the PIN number and the card and stealing them and using them before they ever got to the customer. So the customer is getting their like, where's my stuff? And why is my bank account already being hit by a card I don't have? And that was my first experience with a lie detector test, because the entire company had to do a lie detector to find out
who was the person. Wow, interesting.
It ended up being the mail carrier. It was the big milk truck driver that came. They figured out our system that we would mail the cards and 3 days later the pins would go. So they would pull for the right bank or whatever it was, and they were the ones in the problem.
Wow. Wow. Okay. And also you said it around age 20, you had this life change where you got married as well.
Who wasn't? Who wouldn't?
Just, I guess, why not? Did the marriage happen before or after the layoff and the new problem in the lie detector test?
It happened before the layoff and before the lie detector. I wish I could have hooked him up to a lie detector, actually, in hindsight. But yes. So he was my boyfriend at 18 when I moved out. It's just the natural thing, right? I'm mature. I'm ready. Let's get married. And what a terrible idea. But I did get a fabulous son out of it when I was 24. So we divorced while I was pregnant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Why? You didn't have to worry about competing parenting styles in those early days.
Didn't.
All right. So now at 24, you also now become a mom. How did that influence your career? What you wanted to do, what you needed to do in that moment? How was that?
Oh my gosh. So a lot of things happened in between those years, but I had taken a job at Viacom Cable, which was before Comcast was the big cable company out here. Viacom was the cable company in California. And I was working in the call center, and then I moved to credit and collections, and then I had a baby, and I was like, I'm not going back to work. I'm going to get licensed to do daycare, and I'm going to do daycare, and I'm going to stay home with my baby. Not all of us are cut out for that. Not all of us are saints on earth that can handle OPC, other people's children. No.
Right.
Nope.
It sounds like such a great idea.
Oh, so glorious. Hanging out with your baby all day. And I was like, God bless the people that do it. I lasted 2 weeks. Thank God I hadn't given notice. So I'm still on maternity leave. Had done the whole process, fingerprinting, licensed, had my first kid. And that little cute 2-year-old wiped his runny nose on something. And I was like, ew, kids have germs. And then the next day I bent down to tie his shoe, and he reached up and like ripped the top of my hair. I was like, that's it. I called my mom, who did daycare at the time. I was like, do you have an opening? And she said, yes. I said, great. I'm giving these people notice today and letting them know that you have an opening and giving them your number. And then I called my old boss and I said, here's the deal. I want to come back, but I don't want to come back in that job. What can you do for me? And he said, well, we've got a spot right here for you in the credit and collections department. You can work directly for me, and let's see where that goes. And I was like, all right, I'll do that. Nice. Like, I had been in the call center, so no one calls the cable company to say, hey, you're doing a great job. Oh my God, I love my television channels. They call because the cable is out and they're unhappy and their bill is high. And I just remember one day they used to monitor our calls, and a lady was screaming at me. So the power was out, which meant her cable was out. And she's screaming at me. And I'm like, but the power is out. I don't know how you want me to do anything different for you. The cable only works with the power. Your TV only works with the power. And she said, well, what the F am I supposed to do? Blah, blah, blah. And I said, I don't know, maybe read a book. Not the right answer. Not the right answer.
But very
The vice
helpful. It worked
I
during
know.
restriction. You know what I mean?
It did. It worked for me.
Okay,
So the
but the
vice president of the call
didn't think
center
so.
was monitoring, and she called me right in.
Oh.
So that was all before I went on maternity leave. So when I came back, credit and collection seemed like a dream. I mastered all the pieces of that role so quickly, and I wasn't doing a lot of calls. I was doing more processing of reports and cleaning up processes and writing processes, and I was bored. I got really bored. So then I thought, well, I'll apply to be a lead in the call center. That's got to be more glamorous. I'll help the people who are on the phones. A lead is the person that takes all the really bad calls that the regular people answering the calls can't handle. When someone says, I want to talk to a supervisor, you suddenly get to be the supervisor without the paycheck.
Oh, gosh.
So that did not last long either. I think I made that about 11 months. And then a position opened up in the information services department. And I said, I don't even know what that is, but I'm going to apply. And I
I'm
got the
great with
job.
encyclopedias.
Right. Obviously, I have information. And the people that worked in that department looked so happy. I didn't even think to have an informational interview. I just applied. Oh, full transparency. Before I applied for that, I applied to be a technician. And I went in all cute with my hair done and my little suit and my nails. And the hiring manager said, I don't know how to say this the right way. And I just said, what is it? What is it, Bob? And he said, you know, you have to go under houses. I said, ooh. He said, you're not going to be wearing that. Like, okay. And he said, your hair's going to have to be up and you're not going to be able to have nails. And I said, you know, I can't really work Saturdays anyway, so it's okay.
But
I played for
you to discern that a little bit more. Like, I'm hearing like you advocating for yourself, returning to work, like what you know, to be able to do that, and listening, discerning, and being like, oh, okay, thank you for that new information. Yeah.
I applied for an HR job. I did not get that. In hindsight, I know why. I am not the mouth for HR. It's not a gift. Again, if it shouldn't be said, I'm probably going to say it. So information services made sense, and I loved it. I learned how to do soldering, and I don't know, there's something very soothing about soldering wires together. And it was back in the old days with Cat5s and punch lines and
that's cool.
green bar reports. And so there was something different every minute of every day. And that's where I kind of found my niche. I started going to school again at night and on the weekends, working on my degree. Yeah, information services, I was just, oh my gosh, I love it. So I worked my way up. I stayed in information services through 4 mergers and acquisitions.
Wow.
And really ended my career in corporate as an executive director of Comcast Corporation. And information services was my thing. I love technology, but I love the people and technology. I'd say my superpower was translating geek to C-suite and C-suite to geek so that we could get things done so much faster and more efficiently. So a weird set of skills, but somehow they got in me.
Oh, but like I'm also hearing that you were open to opportunities and pivots. You tried things out. You know, kept seeking, and then you found something that you enjoyed that you didn't even know had existed, and then made a space for that and made a valuable contribution that was absolutely needed to translate that information from those two teams. Like, this was glorious. You got some promotions and new things, and you worked your way up, and so it was kind of awesome until it wasn't. So tell a little bit about that. And then what happens? It's like, wow, look at you progressing up. And then you're going back and you're kind of getting a degree as well. And like, wow, all these things going for you. But then what else started to be happening along the same lines?
Great question. I'm going to back up just a teeny bit in the story because I glossed over a really big piece of it. So I was promoted from analyst, information service analyst, to project coordinator to project manager. When I got to project manager, I had a leader who I loved, who understood that I am a square peg that does not fit into any round hole. And she's like, as soon as I stop pushing you, you just go and do the thing that needs to be done. For some reason, you figure things out really quickly. And I said, yeah. Well, she loved me. I loved her. I ended up sitting in that project management role for 10 years. And that 10 years is a big part of my story because I kept thinking, well, if I just take on more work, take on more responsibility, finish my degree, do all these things that eventually someone's going to recognize this and just promote me magically to this great director role that I'm aspiring for. That's not how it works. And so what I learned
the
as
myth of meritocracy, the myth of meritocracy.
Nobody's paying attention. And if you're making your boss shine like a beacon, she's not in a hurry to move you along to anything because you're in a great spot for her also. And it's not that she had ill intentions. It just was working. And I never thought to ask, what does it take to get promoted? I just assumed. Yeah. So we went through a reorg because that's what we do in the tech and telecom world. We go through reorgs. And this particular reorg, I was told I needed to reapply for my position. And as I was getting ready to do that, I thought, well, let me see what other positions there are. And I realized that all of the positions needed to be reapplied for. So I looked at the jobs and realized I was already doing more than the manager role, which is a level ahead of me. I was already leading 3 teams of people. I was leading massive projects, responsible for multiple millions of dollars. I had done all of this stuff. And I said, screw it. I'm not applying for my job. I'm applying for that job. So I did. And I went in through the interview process and I was offered the job. I was like, oh, this is awesome. With a 4% pay increase. So 10 years. And that was the day I was like, that's not happening. So I said, no, thank you. And he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to leave. I guess this is it. Like, I'm either moving up, over, or out. This isn't working. And within 15 minutes, I was pulled into the CFO's office where she proceeded to tell me why they wanted me in the position. And she proceeded to tell me my value to the company. And I thought, oh, that was just a total facepalm of I should be telling them this. I should have been negotiating and pushing, not just saying, no, screw this. That conversation ended with her saying, what's it going to take to make this offer palatable to you? We want you to accept it. And I said, well, 15% and a senior manager title. And she said, I assume you mean on top of the 4% we've already offered. And I'm like, obviously, no.
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
That's a dumb question.
But I wonder if maybe in that moment she was trying to help advocate for you because you
absolutely
didn't know, right? And I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And like, should she have done it earlier? Yes. Mm-hmm. Should someone have said, hey, during this reorg, I'm kind of reviewing this, you actually, I want to make sure that you apply for the one that's actually best suited for what you've been doing. Thank you so much for your contributions. So sorry for the oversight. Let's try to make it right now. I mean, that could have been a different thing, right? If everybody wasn't so busy with their own selves to actually think about impact of others.
It would have been lovely. But we ended up with the senior manager title, the 19% pay increase, and 11 months later, another reorg. Oh. So this time we're going from a California structure to a division structure, which means my new boss is going to be in Colorado. And the way it was working is there were 7 directors who had to reapply, which was for 4 positions, Once those 4 directors were filled, they would go to the senior manager level and then work into the analyst level. And I was like, well, I'm putting my name in the hat for a director role. If I've learned nothing at all, I have learned I need to advocate better for myself. So I did. I applied for a director role. And as I was hearing other directors say they were interviewing and things were going on, I hadn't received a phone call. I said, well, I guess I'll be calling the hiring manager. So I did. And I just said, Lisa, I'm curious about the status of these positions. I haven't been scheduled for an interview, so I was really looking to get the timing from you. And she said, well, I'm going to be really transparent with you. I have been told that I need to fill these roles with people who already have a director title. So if I don't fill them with one of the 7 people that are already in these roles, I'll be looking outside for other director level people to fill the roles. And I thanked her. I said, I really appreciate your transparency, but let me tell you some things you probably don't know about me because HR wouldn't have this on their records. And I started sharing with her my accomplishments and what I had done to drive the business forward where I was located and all of the things I had really been doing as a project manager. Because in HR, it looked like I had gone from project coordinator to project manager to senior manager. She can't possibly be ready for a director role. Like, I was doing the senior manager role without the title for years.
Imagine what your life would be like if your career aligned with who you are, what you do best, and actually fuel the life you want. At Next Success, we support all ages and stages through career transitions, from students exploring majors or careers to job seekers actively searching or reimagining their next move to professionals committed to self-awareness and leadership growth. Stay connected and explore what's possible at nextsuccesscareers.com and follow Next Success Method on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook.
Yeah.
So a few days later, I was flown to Denver, interviewing in front of a panel of 7 vice presidents and senior directors, where I explained to them what the job was that I was applying for, because they were so confused with all of the reorg work that I landed that offer. And so that is just a process that I took going forward from that learning, which then led to the next reorg. Lisa had promoted me to senior director based on accomplishments and things I had done. The next reorg was in 2019, and their thought was we would all just come over as is. And I called the head of the department and I said, I'm looking at this organization chart. My peer, he has a vice president title. I don't. So it feels weird that you want to bring me over as a senior director title. And he said, what do you want? I said, I want a job offer with a promotion in title and pay. And then I need to make a decision as to whether I want to accept that. So I got that. And then opened it up for the other women who were in the same position as me with director or senior director titles coming into a role where they were going to be completely uneven with their peers. So just saying something, just asking the question and advocating a little for myself opened the door for mostly women in the department to get a better title and a pay increase through that reorg. But it wasn't for me. And that's how we got to where we are.
Okay. So you advocated, you asked, you learned to just go ahead and advocate and say the thing out loud, point out inconsistencies, point out things that hadn't been clearly documented or communicated about the contributions that you had made. And then you received that, but then what else started happening that made you realize, and thank you, but no thank you?
I was not aligned. And it was I had gone from working under the division president who was very transparent and open and clear about what leadership is and how to lead correctly. And, if we're doing something stupid, tell us, don't let us do it. Step into a department that was very much a 1995 style management capacity. And so
we're talking not emotionally intelligent,
zero,
perhaps authoritarian, do what I say, this is how we're doing it, don't wake the waves. What else can we describe for some of our listeners who might not understand a 1995?
Might not have been born yet.
For sure. Yes. Yes.
It is very much, as I say, it is not a put your people first. I am a believer in servant leadership. And I know a lot of people say that, but that is how I live. I believe in helping my leaders be better leaders. I believe in helping our team members do what helps them shine and grow at the same time. And it wasn't like that. I was sitting in a meeting and I'm going, why am I in this meeting? This is an analyst level meeting. We don't know how this piece works. We need the experts. Why is this a room of executive directors and vice presidents making this decision who are going to go back and tell the people who have to implement it, just do it, figure it out. And I know they're going to come and say, these are the complications. We need the experts in the room. And I started pushing back and I started bringing those individuals into meetings so that we had the brains in the room, not just the power, for lack of a better word. And then we had a couple of meetings where I would fly to Philadelphia, which is where our headquarters is. Again, I'm in California, so it's a whole day to get there and a whole day to get back. I would show up in these meetings. We would sit there and have conversations and make decisions. By the time I was back in California with the plane wheels on the ground, I would have a message from my boss at the time saying, well, after you left, we continued the conversation and we shifted the direction. That didn't happen once. That happened at least 3 times. It resulted in me losing a position under me without any say in it, resulted in just really poor decisions on what the culture of the department was going to look like. And it was a struggle at that point. I'm just like, you know what? It's maybe the universe telling me it's time to do something different. Started building. Go ahead.
Sorry, it's not like there's organizational structure changes and struggles.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but for me, and now I can say for sure it happened for me. At that time, it seemed like it happened to me. But even though it was like organizational kind of changes, I sure as hell took that personally and had some effects in my own health, relationships, well-being. Did any of that come home and didn't just stay at work as far as some of those struggles
Oh,
that
yeah.
you couldn't really control or affect? Just curious.
So much. I was struggling to get out of bed. I was really weighed down. I didn't know. So I started seeing a naturopath, and I didn't know I had Epstein-Barr and Lyme disease. And those came out. The main trigger for both of those is stress. And Epstein-Barr makes you really tired. It's like having mono, if you ever had that in your teens.
Yeah.
It's like having that as an adult with a lot more weight and a lot less energy.
Yeah.
And then add on perimenopause, add on, all these things. I was having migraines. I wasn't sleeping. I'm an authentic person. Pretty much, again, if I don't say it, my face does, because I cannot lie. I'm not that person. I say what I believe and what I mean. And going and facing my team of 50-ish people, telling them something I didn't believe in was making me physically sick. And it was just time to go. I had started building my business on the side, a coaching business, for 4 years, and had never intended to make that my full-time job. I had always intended that it was going to be fun. It was something I loved doing, coaching women, sometimes college students, occasionally a man that's like, hey, I really need help with this thing. It was the thing that I did so that it wasn't all about politics and other people's way of doing things. And I thought, I'm just going to build it. And I realized one day, I woke up, it's like, I built a business. Why am I putting up with this crap? Like, what am I doing? And I told my husband, I said, I'm going to give notice in March of 2020 after my stock options vest and I get my bonus. I know you're laughing because we all know what happened in March of 2020. I was like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really,
I
really?
ended up staying another couple years because of
Yeah.
2020. Yeah. I was trying to wind down and let my commission checks kind of roll all up and in, get the pace setter money for not going. It was supposed to be Hawaii that year. I'm kind of glad we didn't go because the guy who did go to that pace setter trip, it ended up being that week that it was supposed to be like, stop the spread. And then he came back and had no toilet paper. So, I mean, and then I stayed another almost 3 years later. Yeah. So, but
It's
what
what
had you
happens.
even start it in the first place? When you're having some of these frustrations and you're like, you know what I'm going to just do? I'm going to make a side hustle. And I think it's going to be coaching. Like, how did that even come into fruition? And then how did you at first start to manage building that back then?
That was a fun thing. I was actually at a women's conference.
Right.
I believe it was 2018. I was sitting at a women's conference down in Southern California, and there's this whisper, why aren't you leading this? And, I'm like, well, get out of here. And then I'm going, well, I can't lead this. I don't have a master's or a PhD. I haven't been all over the world. I haven't done this and this, like naming off their qualifications, right? Not thinking anything about my own qualifications. By the time I left that seminar, it was 2.5 days. That whisper was like a scream. It's like, you have got to figure this out. And I'm like, oof, okay, I'm going to go figure this out.
Yeah.
So I started looking around, and the next thing I know, I hear from someone who's a business coach. Her name's Dawn. And I thought, well, you know what? Let me reach out to Dawn and see what she's offering and what that looks like. I hired her. I still am in touch with her. Absolutely love her. Helped me lay out the foundation of what this could look like, who I could work with. She would send me people to practice coaching with to see, what do I love? Where's my niche? Who is it that I want to work with? And to your point, having a very busy, high demanding job that could call me at any time of day or night with whatever they needed, that was the hard part. Where do I find time without impacting my family? Where do I find time without impacting my own mental health, but also know that this is filling my cup a bit?
Yeah.
So I did. Nights, I would work at night. I would work on weekends. And I say work, I use that term very lightly, but a couple of hours here, a couple of hours there. My whole philosophy is that you can build a business while working your day job in an hour a day, just an hour a day of focused time and action. And that's what I did. I was working a lot in the career advancement and job search space. Loved it. Loved weirdly helping people with their resumes, getting them really set and strong in their interviews, whether it was for an internship or a C-level role. And just kind of stayed the course for those couple of years so that when I got to that point, I was like, okay, I don't have to do this. I had paid down my debt. I had built up a running money account. Make sure there's money set aside because business costs money.
Yes.
But it just was all of those foundational pieces that I was able to do while I still had corporate funding.
I think that's so smart to do that for those who are able to stay on a little bit longer and strategically build very intentionally. That could make a much smoother transition for sure. Because as you know, like building a business and as I'm learning, it's for a while there, it seems like a game of compound interest with pennies. And you just keep doing the right thing and doing the right thing. Oh, it's going to take time. But of course, I thought I was going to outsmart it. And oh, it's not going to take that much time for me. And I had reached a point to where I just had to leave. The pain of staying the same became greater than the pain of breaking free. It was our 20th wedding anniversary, and my husband told me he was terrified we wouldn't have another anniversary.
Oh.
And I thought, oh man, I finally said too much. Like I didn't wash the socks.
Oh.
And he said, no, your health is deteriorating. And my fear is, I remember who you are, but my fear is the kids don't know who you are because the version of you that they're seeing is just always yelling.
Ouch. That's
right? Right. And he's like, and so I don't care what you do, but this isn't it. Figure it out. You've been talking about leaving for years. Figure that out.
Wow.
And so I did. And I hadn't connected that the health struggles because I thought, oh, you just get older. Everybody gets high blood pressure. Oh, okay. What's one medicine? Oh, okay. Now, oh, we need two? Oh, now it's three? Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. Okay. Oh, dang. I got an irregular heart rate.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, that's interesting. I need a cardiac ablation. I'm just getting old. Oh, okay. And I didn't connect that it was related to that stress of the struggle of like wanting things to be different and of course, as women, we want to push through, right? It's like, there's a challenge. I can do it. I can do anything. I can do all that and cut fruit and wake people up and pack lunches. And like, you're not going to tell me I can't do it. Of course I can do it. But after leaving, I'd like to hear about you. After you finally left, what did it feel like? I didn't realize the weight. It's almost like they say I've heard a story where you can put a frog in water and start to boil it and it doesn't jump out.
Yeah.
If you put a frog in boiling water, it will maybe try to jump, I guess. But like you don't realize the pressure. You don't realize all of that going on around you until you do remove yourself from it. And then it felt like this, I didn't know I was carrying that weight. What was your experience?
And a lot of it, I've had conversations with women who want to leave corporate. Clearly, I talk to them every day, but I reflect back on it and I feel like we wear it as kind of a badge of honor. It's almost like we're bragging about how stressed we are or how we just had a Snickers bar while we were running between meetings and trying to go to the bathroom and hold the Snicker bar between your teeth to like multitask, which is disgusting. I've never done that. It's how it feels.
I can see how it could happen.
It can happen. And I think about the badge of honor, but the conversations in the break room. Oh, yeah, I've just been meetings all day. I've been up since 4 a.m., blah, blah, blah. And, we're just going, oh, I missed my mammogram appointment because I had to be in this meeting. Or, oh, I missed that thing I wanted to do with my kid. And we talk about it like we're bragging about it because we're taught that that's performance. We're performing. We're doing what needs to be done. And at the end of the day, performing is exhausting. It's exhausting. And when you stop doing it, it feels really weird for a minute. And then you're like, oh, free, doing your thing. I still remember the first day after I left, April 2nd, 2021. The next Monday, I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to Starbucks and then I'm going to go to Target and I'm just going to do all the things that people do during the day. And I get in the drive-thru at Starbucks because who doesn't get in the drive-thru at Starbucks? We're in a hurry. And so I was in the drive-thru and I'm going, why am I in the drive-thru? So I get my coffee that I'd already ordered and I pull around and I park and I sat in front and I physically forced myself to drink my entire coffee before I then got up and leisurely strolled across the parking lot to walk through Target, where I strolled up and down every single aisle, including the baby aisles. I don't have a baby. I am going to take my time and I'm going to check out every aisle. And it's so ingrained in us from that crazy, busy corporate life to just be on the hamster wheel all the time. There's never an off.
Yeah.
And then I remember one day I was working in my home office and I had been talking to a client and then recording some content. And I was like, oh my God, I've got to go to the bathroom. I've been waiting forever. And then I just started laughing. I'm like, I can go anytime I want. There's literally nothing stopping me from walking out of this office, going to the bathroom. And it sounds funny, but we think back to the days of how many times we had to wait because this meeting needed to finish. Couldn't walk out in the middle of it. You know, this deadline had to be hit. And at 4 p.m., you're like, I am going to explode. I got to go. So retraining your brain and rewiring it takes time. And we still, 5 years later, I still fall back into some old habits where I'm like, what am I doing? I don't need to sit at a desk for 8 hours. I literally built this business, so I don't have to do that. But it's just that reward system of, oh, well, she's stressed out. She must have enough work. Let's give her a good review. She's carrying all the things. And teaching women how not to do that. So whether I'm coaching someone who's staying in a 9-to-5 or corporate job or someone who's trying to leave, teaching them how to rewire that and start getting better habits and setting better boundaries. You mentioned kids. My son, when he started his business, he told me, he said, I never wanted to go to work for a company. I saw how hard you worked. I saw how many hours a day you were gone, and I saw how stressed out you were all the time. Literally, the side of my hair has finally grown back in. I don't know if I was just pulling it out self-consciously or if it was falling out.
I mean, it's just the thing, right? Just make sure it's all good. Yeah. And having different outfits for different meetings because although some of our male counterparts could wear the same freaking thing for a whole week and nobody would notice or care, we would have to wear different stuff, to be presentable. So,
that's right.
That's great. So your son decided to take the example you were sharing and try it differently. And just out of curiosity, it's not your story to share, but I'm curious as a mom, how'd that work out for him?
So far, so good. He's loving it. He was heading toward acting. And we know 2020 shifted all of that. And then he temporarily took a job as a window washer. He had been a caretaker before, working with a disabled gentleman. And then he started the acting piece. And then he came home for a little bit at the end of 2020. He hadn't been able to see us because of risks of COVID with his client. And he was in a pretty rough space. And I said, just come home. Just leave your job for a little bit and come home. Well, he took a job window washing with a company. He's like, I kind of love it. They pay me like crap. And I think I can make this a business. I was like, oh, all right. Well, the next thing I know, he's moving to Southern California with his buddies. And I'm like, wait, that wasn't part of the equation.
Yeah, you were supposed to do it right here so I could get a hug.
Yeah, exactly.
Anytime.
So he started window washing and then he added in pressure washing and solar panel cleaning. And he's doing great. He has hired 2 employees. His business is growing and he is happy. He's like, I'm busy a lot of the time, but I love the work and I'm building my future. That's amazing.
Oh, that's amazing. And you can have a somewhat flexible schedule. That's cool. Okay. So we've hinted a little bit on the work that you do now. Tell a little bit more explicitly, like who do you work with? How do they find you?
I work mostly with midlife women. So I say 45 plus. Most of my clients are 50 to 60. They're really in that window. And they're looking for that next chapter. And in some cases, that's a new job, a promotion, or helping them improve their leadership so they can ride out the rest of their career until retirement because that's what they love. It's great. Most of my clients right now, though, are trying to do what I did, which is build a business on the side so that it creates their corporate escape plan. That's what I call it. So really that, not taking the leap, starting to build and lay the foundation, which takes time. You and I both know it takes time to figure out your niche and what you're offering and how you're offering it and what your pricing looks like. I help them with those strategies and get them to focus for 1 hour a day. And sometimes it's not on a Monday, maybe it's on a Saturday, whatever their 1 hour looks like. That 1 hour a day of building toward their next chapter so that they're coming at it just eyes wide open, already making money before they give notice. And saving themselves I say a lot of the struggle, but also saving themselves a lot of money.
Yeah.
At least $50,000 on coaches and trainings and digital thises and paper that's and all the shiny things, right? Because that's how, as a corporate woman, you operate. You know what? I just throw money at it. That'll fix it. It doesn't. It's conversations. Clients tend to come from referrals. That's been my biggest, I would say this year, my biggest for where clients have come from. I have some that find me on social media. I am out and about in the community, so having great conversations. And one of my newest clients actually has a business. She has never been a corporate person, and she's ready to grow. So we're actually taking her to that next level of getting it out of your house and into the interworld, the internet.
I forgot to ask you earlier, but could you reflect on back in the day, what did you think success meant and was? And then now, what do you find is authentic success for you? So I'm imagining that definition may have shifted or grew differently as you grew, but can you clarify that a little bit?
Absolutely. That definition really shifted when I was 50, and I thought, I've always wanted to do this thing. What's the regret going to look like if I don't do it? And for success, I, at that time, was successful. I was what I deemed as successful. I had a high title at a Fortune 50 company. I was making a multiple six-figure salary. I was leading big teams and major initiatives and helping make multiple millions of dollars for a multi-billion-dollar company. I was successful. People knew who I was. I had a strong brand. I was, in the know. I was at the big kids table.
Yeah.
So that was really a big piece of success. I had money. I could just go drop, $1,000 at White House Black Market if I wanted to, because who doesn't want to do that on a happy day? As I have matured in this life, I've come to realize that for me, success, financial stability is always going to be important. There's no way around that. But it looks a little different. When I look at success, it's not so much about what's coming in, it's more about what's going out. It's how am I serving people? How am I serving my community? How am I lifting other women? I'm part of a networking group out here, the Polka Dot Powerhouse. Love them. But we have a little love note at the end of each meeting that you can write, and you don't have to, but you can write a love note to another member, a Polka Dot sister, with something. And someone gave me one last week when I was at the meeting, and it said that she appreciates how much I don't just support and talk about my own business, but I lift other women up and promote their businesses. And I was like, that is success. That to me is something I'm very proud of. Get emotional. It feels very different. I always cared about people. I always cared about my employees and my team. But this is different because it's a real impact on women who are truly growing businesses and building things that matter so much to them and their families.
That is so beautiful. And that's the thing also, is that we assume a lot of times that people know how much they mean to us or the difference that, how much we appreciate them.
Yes.
I love that women's group gives space and time to be intentional about saying thank you or helping people to know that. And one little note can carry us so far, right?
So much, just hearing that somebody else is seeing it. It's not somebody who I necessarily have gone out of my way to promote. I've shared her things or joined her fundraisers or whatever, but she's watching behind the scenes. And I'm like, oh, that's what matters. That's, that I'm a woman's woman. Like, I will do whatever I can to promote you.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, that was a little shift in the success definition there.
I want to thank you so much, Tabatha, for sharing more of the behind the scenes of your story and what kind of built you before you now help others build awesome businesses for their lives, for their families, for your community. Thank you so much for all of the awesome work that you're doing. And thank you for sharing your story on your next success.
Thank you, Carolyn. This has been so fun.
Thanks for listening to Your Next Success with Dr. Carolyn Sengel. Remember, authentic success is yours to define and includes aligning your career to support the life you want.